Hi everyone, it's RJ from Emerald City Hockey, and in this video, I'm going to show you how the media projects an NHL lineup on a game day. Before every Kraken game, we put out a projected Kraken lineup that looks something like this. Like other media outlets, we always try to get the projected lineup out as quickly and as accurately as possible. But what's the process behind getting that information? How do we know how a team is going to line up for a given game? Let's find out. Before we start, real quick 30-second explanation of the lineup graphic so we can all understand how it works. On the left, you've got the forwards. There's 12 forwards, 4 lines, each consisting of a left wing, center, and right wing. And on the right, you've got defense, 3 D pairs, each pair having a player on the left side and one on the right. In the bottom right corner, you have the goalies, starter up top marked by a 1, and backup underneath marked by a 2. In the bottom left, you have scratches. Those are players not in the lineup. We'll go a little deeper into that later. And finally, you have injured. Those are players who are out with an injury. So let's go right into game day and see how we can project what a team's lineup is going to be. The process of projecting a game day lineup starts with morning skate. Morning skate is a shortened type of practice intended to warm up the legs and sometimes focus on a single area of strategy before that night's game. As players begin trickling onto the ice for morning skate, the first thing to note is attendance. Do we have prior knowledge of any players who are dealing with injuries? Are those players out there? Are there any players who should be there but are missing? The answers to those questions let us know which players we may need more information on to determine the lineup. Next is the most important part of morning skate for forecasting the lineup: line rushes. Line rushes are a simple activity you'll see in morning skates, practices, or warm-ups in which the lines of players take turns going through a mock rush together, passing the puck a couple times, and firing a wrist shot at the goalie. If everybody's in attendance, this should give you a good snapshot of what lines the team intends to go with at that point in time. That said, if players are missing, the line rushes can look pretty different from what you'll see in the game. But in general, this is where we get our baseline assumption for what the lineup might look like. The final thing to watch for at morning skate is the first goalie off the ice. That's your indicator of who the starting goalie will be that night. And I've had people ask, why is this the case? Well, after morning skate, you need a goalie to stay behind and continue to take shots from the players who are still on the ice practicing. Since the starter is already set to get a full workload that night, he heads off early to get some necessary rest, while the backup can get some more reps in. After the first goalie heads off the ice, everyone in the media section immediately stands up and heads to the locker room. After doing media scrums and sometimes one-on-one interviews with the players, we talk to the coach. This is when we usually get some further clarity on the lineup and confirmation of the starting goalie. We always ask as much as we can to try to gain insight on the lineup, but ultimately, it's on the coach to decide how much he wants to tip his hand as to what the lineup will be. How much information you get varies depending on the coach, the opponent, and the time of year. For instance, you'll be hard-pressed to get any information on injured players come playoff time. When talking about the lineup, coaches have some terms they tend to use that may not be familiar to those who don't cover the team on a day-to-day basis. So let's take a minute to break down some of this coach speak, and I'm going to go over 5 terms: game time decision, available, maintenance day, scratch, and healthy scratch. Game time decision. This one's pretty straightforward. It means that the team will decide close to game time whether the player will play or not due to an injury or illness. Sometimes the player will even take warm-ups to see how he feels before a final decision is made. When a player is a game time decision, it can make it difficult to project a lineup well ahead of puck drop. Available. As someone who has to project lineups, not a big fan of this one. Available is what it sounds like. The player in question will be available to play that night. Generally, it's used like this. Reporter asks, is X player going to be in the lineup tonight? Coach responds, X player will be available tonight. Basically means they're good to go, but I don't want to reveal if they're playing or not. Maintenance day. A maintenance day is essentially a day off, or on a game day, a morning skate off, usually for the purposes of rest or managing a smaller nagging injury that won't keep a player out of a game. The NHL season is a grind, so maintenance days for veteran players are crucial. If an unexpected player is missing from practice or a morning skate, often it's a maintenance day. When a player takes a maintenance day, another player will usually take their spot in line rushes as a placeholder. When the coach confirms that a player was absent due to a maintenance day, we know we can pencil him into the lineup. Scratch. NHL rosters can have up to 23 players, but only 20 players can be dressed for any given game. That leaves up to 3 scratches, players who are on the roster but not in the lineup that night. If you're at a game and you're wondering who the scratches are, you'll see them listed on the Jumbotron after warmups. Healthy scratch. Sometimes a player is scratched due to an injury or illness. When that's not the case, we refer to this as a healthy scratch. Healthy scratch is a useful term to help clarify whether a player's omission from the lineup is due to injury or performance. This can have added significance when a regular player is out of the lineup. Sometimes a coach will healthy scratch a veteran player after poor play to send a message. Now, the whole process I've described so far is what happens at a full morning skate. Most game days will start with a full morning skate, but sometimes you'll have what's called an optional skate, where only a handful of players are on the ice. And sometimes there's no morning skate at all. Usually optional morning skates, or no morning skate, happens when a team has played the night before or when a game is played earlier in the day than usual. Almost all Kraken home games start at 7 p.m., so for the occasional 5 p.m. or 1 p.m. starts, it's probably best to assume that there won't be a morning skate. After morning skate, we take stock of the information we have and ask whether we can be confident that a projected lineup will be accurate. Do we know who the starting goalie is? Do we know which players will be in the lineup? Do the line rushes make sense in the context of what we've seen earlier this season? If the answer to any of these is no, we may have to wait until warmups. Pre-game warmups, which start about a half hour before the scheduled game time, can help clear up any remaining lineup questions. The first thing you'll see during warmups is the starting goalie leading his team out onto the ice. If there was any doubt as to who the starter would be, this should clear that up. The next thing to check is attendance. If a player is a game time decision, seeing whether he takes warmups can be a good but not perfect indicator of if he'll play that night. Rule of thumb, if a player who's a game time decision takes warmups, he's probably more likely than not to play in the game. If he's not out there for warmups, he'll almost certainly be out of the lineup. After the players stretch and skate around for a bit, it's time for warm-up line rushes. These are similar to the ones you'll see in morning skate, but since they're right before a game, these will be the accurate lines 99% of the time. Whatever lineup questions existed before warm-up should be definitively answered now. At this point, if I haven't already, I'm checking the line rushes, putting them into my projected lineup graphic, and getting it posted on social media. Finally, a few minutes before puck drop, we'll get the official lineup from Kraken PR. As I said, 99% of the time, it'll match what we saw in line rushes. But there are rare exceptions. For instance, a couple weeks ago, Andrei Burakovsky, who was a game time decision, took warmups and he even participated in line rushes. But when the official lineup came in, he ended up being a scratch. So one final caveat that the team can always throw you a curveball and you never really know for sure until you get that official lineup. So that's how the media projects an NHL lineup on game day. I hope this gave you an informative look behind the scenes and helped you understand our projected lineup graphic a little bit better. Next time you're at an NHL game, try looking for the warm-up line rushes and see if you can figure out how the team will line up that night. Now, this explainer type video is a bit of an experiment, so let me know in the comments what you thought, and if you liked it, are there any more topics you'd like me to cover? Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching.